Mr. Don Robertson, would you come up and lead us in prayer and the pledge of allegiance?
Could pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for this opportunity to be here. Thank you for the blessings that you've bestowed upon our community. We thank you for the beautiful weather on this week and for all that you provided for us. So, Lord, we come now asking that you would bless our board members as they deliberate our budget. Bless those who work on behalf of the citizens of our community, those in public safety, and those who serve our community overall. We ask that you continue to bless us and keep us, that we might be of service to one another. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we don't have any amendments or changes to the agenda. I have a motion for approval.
So moved.
Mr. Akery?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. DeStefano?
Yes.
Ms. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Rosie?
Yes, so moved. Okay, Mr. Administrator?
So we have one item, it's just is a non-budget item, but we wanted to bring this before you. Don's going to present this. We didn't ask Michelle to stick around tonight since it's a fairly routine item, but we have an opportunity for a retiree benefit for employees who retire Medicare. There's no cost to the county. We just want to give this option to employ any retirees who may want to choose this.
Right. Thank you. The item before you is that of retiree health insurance. Under the Anthem plan that we now are part of, there's an offering for what's called Anthem 65, which provides or is a Medicare supplement or provides medical supplemental medical benefits, and some primary benefits that may not be included or covered by Medicare. It's only for those who would be eligible for retirement under VRS. So it's a benefit that we don't currently offer. Right now, we just provide our employees with some options, but then this would give them yet an additional option, and in many instances, a better option. As you'll note, it has three main components: medical insurance, dental and vision, and then it also offers access to Commonwealth Wellness. So a little bit of the information about eligibility: you must be Medicare eligible, retired from the county, you must have Medicare Plan A and B, and while it's recommended that you enroll in a separate Medicare Part D, this is the insurance supplement that the employee would have. So in that instance, Medicare is the primary, Advantage 65 is a secondary, and then you also have, as we noted, the dental and vision component of it. You'll note two important things on this slide. One is that the cost of $232 per month is borne by the employee. Anthem would bill the employee directly. So the only relationship that the county has with regard to this is to offer it as a benefit to the employees. There is no cost to the county, but this would be a significant benefit for those retirees who might want to take advantage of the Advantage 65 program. And that said, the only thing that we're asking, or the action that we're asking of you all tonight, would be to adopt a resolution adding Advantage 65 to the county's health insurance plan. Again, there's no cost to the county. The $232 a month is the cost to the employee or to the retiree. And we apologize. We were trying to get this information prior to you adopting the health insurance program at your last regular meeting, but we just got it, and we need to have that included before the plan goes into effect.
So Don, this would be considered an advantage plan, right?
Yes, Advantage 65.
Advantage plan.
Yes.
And I think the cost is great. I mean, if an employee want to do this, $232, can't beat that.
Yeah, not quite there yet, but from what I understand, it's a very competitive price in terms of the benefit, so.
Like many of these programs, is this one that every year it is subject to possibly change or no, in terms of benefits and costs?
Now, I suspect the answer is yes.
Right.
But it would be new to us, so we really don't have history in terms of knowing if those changes or costs are significant or just incremental changes over time.
So, this question, this plan would be available to board members?
Yes, if, there should be a resolution in your packet. It's just like the health insurance plan that we have today. So if you're eligible for the health insurance plan that the county has, as a retiree, you would be eligible for this plan. So it does include elected officials.
Good, great benefit.
Are board members immediately vested, or do you have to?
No. When you say immediately vested, because that's gonna be a VRS.
I'm talking about the retirement, so
So vesting is after 5 years. Now, are you eligible for this immediately? I believe so. This is not a VRS benefit.
yeah, I mean, anyway, I don't take health insurance now anyway, so it's not really relevant. I was just wondering if Mr. Jefferson served for a long term, if you had to, be on the plan for at least 5 years to take advantage of it when you retire, or.
So, just the one distinction, while we compare the eligibility in terms of being VRS eligible, it is a separate benefit from VRS. This is a county benefit that is locally funded.
Right.
But in this instance, there's no cost to the county.
Okay, I think I understand that. So, could this apply to our school retirees as well?
I don't believe so. Now, the schools are, they have, they're self-funded in terms of their insurance. They probably could go out and find a similar product, but this is specifically tied to Anthem's local choice program, which the schools are not a part of.
And I understand that they're self-funded, but if they were to go on to local choice at some point, then something like this would be available?
I suspect it would be available to them at that time, yes.
Any other discussion? We probably need a motion on that, even though this is a work session.
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution as presented.
Okay. No further discussion? Madam Clerk?
Mr. DeStefano?
Yes.
Mr. Akery?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes,
Ms. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Rosie?
Yes, so moved.
Thank you.
Okay, Randy? I couldn't help but note that we have a book and another book.
We want to make sure you have plenty of options. So, tonight, of course, is the introduction of the budget. You received this a couple of days ago. I'm sure you probably haven't had a chance to go through all of the information, since it is quite a bit, but we're going to walk through the information that was sent to you the other night. So, some of the highlights. First, I want to emphasize that this is strictly a maintenance budget. This is a term we haven't used in a while.
Should we use this, Randy? or-
Sure, yeah, you can use the binder there. This is not a term we traditionally use, because we've usually been able to expand programs or add staff. This does not include any new positions for county or for the school system. The only increase in here is for the 3% salary increase, and that's the same amount that the state is doing, so that's the amount for all employees, both school and county. There's also funding in here for the health insurance cost. Our health insurance went up about $370,000. The schools went up $1.6 million. So there is $2 million in the combined budgets for just health insurance costs. Tax relief. That is an item that continues to grow. We're going to go into a little more detail, but I've sent you some information today about that, and we'll walk through that. This year, the amount per penny is and when I say per penny, the amount that a penny of real estate tax will generate is up to $686,000. In the current year budget, it was $670,000. So we're continuing to see some growth in that, but the growth has slowed down somewhat. Unfortunately, we are having to recommend a 5-cent increase in the real estate tax rate, and we'll talk about that in a little more detail. So I want to talk about the tax exemptions first. This is the last 10 years, or 10 years worth of data on the amount of taxes that are exempted through two different programs. One is the elderly and disabled program, and that is based on income levels, and it's capped at a certain amount based on the value of their house. Then we have the disabled, 100% disabled veterans, and that is no cap, and there's no income threshold for that. So as you can see, in previous years, and these are combined. This is the veterans and the elderly and disabled combined. 2017, 600,000. It was growing slightly, about 100,000 a year, up until 2021. Then it started jumping 200,000 a year, and then it went to 400,000. Or excuse me, 300,000. Then it went 800,000 in FY24. As you can see, it is rising exponentially. For FY25, it's almost $3 million right now. That is only through 9 months. So we have 3 months more, 3 months left in the fiscal year, and they're coming in faster and faster. In fact, I was talking to Megan today. Megan is here on behalf of the Commissioner's Office. Mr. Gwaltney had a death in his family. They have 13 applications in their office right now to review. And there was a question about this today about, where are these coming from? So those 13, 12 are new residents to the county. These are not just, existing Isle of Wight residents. These are people who are moving to the county, and some of them are moving and coming to, the new construction properties we have throughout the county. So now, to give you some context, that $3 million for FY25, we only budgeted $2.5 million, and we still have 3 months left to go. So it is becoming harder and harder to estimate. Now, you'll see the $3.6 million for FY26, but in the budget we prepared a few days ago, we had budgeted $3.1 million. We got updated numbers from the Commissioner's Office and clarified that the number we had been basing on was only for 9 months, not a full 12 months. So I apologize for that, but these numbers are changing so rapidly, it's hard to keep up with the estimate. As you may or may not know, these original bills were passed in 2011. They have further constitutional amendments that have been passed by the voters to make these. There was one this past year. And in addition to the property tax, just so you know, and Megan, if I say something wrong, if you can help me on this, a veteran, if they're 100% disabled, they receive the house and 1 acre of land exempted, and then it's also exempt for their spouse as well upon their death. And that's until the spouse passes, correct? So it could be a long time. And then in addition to that, they also get 1 vehicle exempted. So this only shows the real estate. The vehicles, we don't even track that, because once we find out they're exempt, we don't value them because we have to pay to get them valued. So we estimate around 600,000 or so of vehicles are exempted. So if you just add 600,000 to these most recent numbers, and that would be the total amount of taxes being exempted by these two programs. We have had bills with the state to help counties and localities that are higher, impacted at a higher level than other localities. And I sent a spreadsheet around earlier today. And right now, we're the 6th most impacted locality in the state. When I say impacted, the amount of our property tax that is being exempted as a percentage of our tax base. So, for example, Stafford County is the highest in the state at 8.23%. Of course, that's a large number, about $23 million for them. Hampton is next at 5.3, Chesapeake 5, Suffolk is at 4.8, Prince George, just to the west of us, at 4.75, and then we're number 6 at 4.53. So 4.5% of our property tax is being taken up with these two programs. And if you look at that spreadsheet, almost all of the localities in the top tier of the of state is either Hampton Roads localities or Northern Virginia localities. There's a couple others mid part of the state that maybe have an Army base on them, but the vast majority are in close to military heavy areas such as Hampton Roads and Northern Virginia. One of the bill that we've have been pushing at the VACO level is to reimburse localities that are impacted at a higher level, reimburse part of the value, because like I say, it's going up so dramatically, it's hard to even guesstimate what it would be next year. And that bill has not gotten through the General Assembly. We talked to Senator Jordan about it at the last meeting and brought this up, but I think she is supportive of it, but it's just not something that's gone through the General Assembly. All right, so some of the highlights from the budget, I put together these highlights each year just so you can see the big ticket items and see where the impacts are. So from a revenue standpoint, the overall budget is up $5.6 million, the recommended budget. $3.3 million of that increase would come from the increase in real property taxes. When I say that, the 5-cent increase that I proposed. Only $700,000 came from normal growth. When I say normal growth, that's just the new construction property increases throughout the county. So about $700,000 is coming from the normal growth. We have had a large growth in sales tax this year. I send those reports around. We have been growing at double-digit increase this past year. So we're looking at about $600,000 increase. So we budgeted $4.4 million in the current year. I'm estimating we'll hit $5 million by the end of the year. But beyond that, and Commissioner Gwaltney and I talked about this, is that we don't feel comfortable recommending much of an increase beyond that because we don't know what's going to happen with the economy moving forward. So basically, we're estimating flat growth after the end of this year, and we'll see how it comes out. We did have some increase in business equipment, $370,000. Now, I want to clarify the difference between business equipment and machinery and tools tax. Machinery and tools tax is, equipment that's used in manufacturing. Business equipment is all their other equipment that doesn't classify as or qualify as machinery and tools in the manufacturing process. So this would be their furniture, all the other things. So we've have had some increase in business equipment. Our EMS revenue is up. We've had a greater collection efforts there, so that's an increase of $300,000. Indirect costs, that's what we charge other programs for, like my office, budget and finance, HR. That's up $288,000. Public service taxes, this is the utility companies, the bus company, the train, the solar farms. So we have had an increase of $257,000 there. These are industries that are taxed by the state or assessed by the state, and then the state tells us how much the assessed value should be for that. The comp board, as you know, we have certain positions that are constitutional positions, constitutional offices, sheriff's department, treasurer, commissioner of revenue, commonwealth attorney, voter registrar, clerk of court. we receive funding from from the state to help offset the cost of those offices, and it pays for a portion of the employee's salary. So there's been a $240,000 increase there. Delinquent taxes, that's always an estimate every year. We feel like we're taking about $150,000 more there. Now, there's also a couple large decreases. Machinery and tools taxes down this year, 156. That does not include the Keurig, because Keurig is still operational, and Keurig will still be taxed for next year because they were operational as of January 1. So we'll still receive the Keurig machinery and tools for FY26. But these are just overall decreases, and that goes up and down each year.
So if it doesn't include Keurig, what does it include?
There's a variety of businesses all across the county that some may have,
You have people that are replacing Smithfield Foods, Keurig, not Keurig, but IP, they're replacing equipment, and sometimes the newer stuff is cheaper than the older stuff. So that you see that amount go down.
Do we know how much Keurig represents here?
I think that's privileged information. isn't it?
Okay.
It is not represented on here, because it'll still be effective for FY26, but this is, it'll go away in '27, FY27. And then the consumer utility tax, that is a tax, there's two different taxes. There's a consumption tax and a utility tax, and the utility tax is the flat amount per residential and commercial property, owner, correct? And there's a decrease there. So then on the expense side, the largest increase is the school system operating costs of $3.15 million. Now, that is, if you remember from the presentation of the day, they had two amounts. They had one amount that was the required amount, which was just the health insurance, the 3% salary increase, and some maintenance increases. That's what this amount is. They had another amount of about $3.6 million or $3.5 million that was what they call discretionary, and that's where all the new positions were. I'm just recommending the required amount because that was all we could even begin to afford, even with the 5-cent tax increase. For our cost of living for all other county employees, it's just slightly under $700,000. Again, we talked about the tax relief, the $600,000 increase. That's at the 3.1 million. That's not at the 3.6 million. Debt service, 545,000. This is the increase related to the Carrollton HVAC bond. So we issued bonds back in the fall for the Carrollton heat and air conditioning project. That is the increase in debt service for that project. The health insurance, the county's portion is almost 371,000. The employees are contributing part of that as well, so they have another amount on top of that. E911, 251,000. This is a little bit deceiving because there's several things going on there. The state comp board has provided an additional 6% increase for dispatchers statewide. So of course, they don't cover all of them, so we had to cover part of that. And then the previous director was a comp board employee, so some portion of the comp board funding was attributed to the E911 budget. The new person is going to be a civilian employee, so they won't be eligible for comp board funding. So what happened is more of the comp board funding got shifted back to the sheriff's office instead of the E911. So we received more funding on the sheriff's side, but less funding on the E911 side. But we share the E911 costs with Smithfield and Windsor.
So they'll give us more
Correct.
back, so it's 251,000. And then, so the revenue piece matches up, I would guess, on the top.
So we actually came out a little ahead on that because it shifted so the sheriff's department gets a lump sum, and then 5 dispatchers plus in the past the director, we would allocate over to the E911 budget. And in this case, now we can't allocate the director, so that money gets shifted back to the sheriff's department. So it's it just gets moved back up to the county side.
Yeah, I get that part, but if we have to pay more for the E911 service, then wouldn't there be an associated partial revenue reimbursement from the
Th-
towns?
That's because on the revenue side, for the comp board, we receive more money on the comp board side, so that helped offset that.
Oh, so that's in the 240,000 line.
And then each year on the E911 budget, we recalibrate the percentages, and every year it seems like the county percentage goes up a little bit because we take a combination of the population of the county as a whole minus the two towns, and then the actual 911 calls that come into the center for sheriff and fire rescue. And then, and we compare that to the towns, just their police departments, and then their population. So every year it changes a little bit. Right now, we're paying around 72%, I believe, of the E911 budget, and it changes fractionally each year.
So I know this is E911, which is a shared cost to the two, with the two towns. We don't do anything like that with fire and rescue or emergency services, do we?
No, we don't.
But they used to years ago.
Really? Now, I have not seen that before. Now, the only other thing we share with, and we just started sharing the inspection services with the town of Smithfield. So that is something that started the current fiscal year, so we'll continue that. And then we have shared, well, we're talking about shared services. We also have shared services with the two towns for IT services, so we provide IT services for both towns. That's it. And we do some stormwater work with towns as well. The regional jail, their increase this year, we had a comp plan, not a comp plan, a pay plan, pay and classification plan for the regional jail employees. We've been losing a lot of employees to other law enforcement localities, so we did a pay study, and so part of that is the increase there. And then also, they actually lost revenue this year. The law changed about what they could charge for telephone commissions, so they lost about $500,000 worth of revenue. They could have to cap it at a certain rate now, and so we lost that revenue. So that was the other big item. And then, of course, they had also some health insurance increases as well. But the bulk of it was the pay plan and then loss of revenue for the telephone commissions. On the plus, and then we had $170,000 increase for the volunteer fire rescue agencies, and we can go into that in a little more detail. That's all of them together. Some of that was not just to the volunteer departments, some of it was insurance for the volunteer departments. So it was things we pay for them, but it goes to their benefit. And then a plus side, we had a decrease in the transfer to public utilities, about $200,000, and I'll talk about that when I talk about some of the fees.
You want us to ask you questions?
Oh,
now?
sure, go ahead.
The drug exchange, the drug box exchange, is that part of the increase?
That is part of the increase in the career fire and rescue response, not in the volunteers. It's in the, we have a lump sum in Gary's budget for the fire and rescue
But that
response.
didn't make your top 10 list?
No, it did not make the top 10 list.
Number of homes budgeted that would be built or added, I guess, in the county, 24, 25 versus 25, 26?
We budgeted 100 new connections for water and sewer, so we're estimating 100 new homes being built
Next
in
year.
the county.
Right.
So so that wouldn't include all the ones in the town, because the towns, of course, we get, and when I say water and sewer connections, so when we estimated the number of water and sewer connections, we use 100. In addition to that, we expect more homes to be built from Gerald's report, and of course, he uses a calculation that looks at the number of housing starts and then forecasts the assessment rate. So he increased the assessments by, I think it was 2%.
I guess I should have asked it that way. How many housing starts were budgeted for this year versus next year?
Okay, so we looked at housing starts. There were 241 in 2024. We actually had an increase, and then we had of course, the large construction, the apartment complex for Business Grant was finished this year. We have some new construction going on Brewer Station, And he looks at it from a standpoint of the value of property, not necessarily the houses. So he takes that to account when he calculates the values. But he has estimated $6,084,000 in total assessments, which is a 1.8% increase in assessments.
So you
Because
can't
he
give me a
assigns different,
number-
I'm sorry.
Can't give me a number of new housing starts for 2025?
No, he didn't calculate it that way. He just calculates the increase in assessments because he calculates, it depends on the value of the property, whether it's a townhome, a condo, single family, and then commercial construction. So he includes all that again. I could probably ask him, he could probably give you a,
For 24, we had 241
Right.
housing starts for 24. We're already at, for 25, we already have 37 housing starts for the 2 months.
So the wild card is whether or not you'll receive real estate tax on some of those. So some of you will not realize any revenue through real estate tax.
and they're throughout the year, they're scattered throughout the year. So they complete during the, and that also includes, well, we also have housing starts that have already started in 2024 that will, finish sometime during this year. So, it's a matter of deciding when they get finished and when you can start taxing them. Some are partial years, so if they complete, let's say, July 1, we get half the year, or December 1.
Correct.
So Randy, even though we got all this new growth maybe coming up with new houses, but what percentage of these proposed new houses might be occupied by the veterans, which we won't see any revenue from?
And that's the wild card in trying to estimate this, is,
Right.
You don't know until they're occupied.
And you don't even know them because, as you have explained before, somebody, and not to pick on veterans, because that's not the point here, we're just trying to make the wheel go around. But you could have a veteran in there today that just hasn't been able to get the benefit yet, and then you have to pay it back over a given amount of time, right? Not to mention from then on, not receiving any revenue, correct?
But I think we've had some that we went back 3 or 4 years, right?
We had one that went back 8.
8 years? Is that the limit?
So, no, you can go back to 2012 is when it became effective.
Okay.
The program did. So the DV puts them back to the effective date of 12, we go back to that date.
So if the veteran causes really a hardship to the county, we got no vehicle to deal with that.
Well,
Nothing.
and not to, Mr. Jefferson, you and I have known each other a long time, so I think what you're saying is not the veterans, but the program.
Right.
Because Lord knows we want to take care of our veterans.
Oh, yeah, I
But when-
agree with
When
that.
other people above us do a program and expect us to figure out how to pay for it, then that's where you and I share the concern.
For example, the 13 that are in there today, 6 of them are moving into new construction.
Right.
So that's, to your point, a house could be built that we think is going to generate taxes, and then it's not taxable because of that situation.
Just the program.
Yep.
We had a conversation earlier today, I may not have it right, but didn't you think that maybe perhaps 50% of those were vets, or no?
Well, the 13, those were all disabled veterans. This is just the ones that are pending right now in the office. One of them has been a current resident of Alloy County. The other 12 are all brand-new residents moving into the county.
And it's not fair to our veterans, because
No.
they deserve the benefit. It's just politicians didn't think about how that was going to get paid for.
Well, when the state enacted this program, they basically wrote a blank check for cities and counties to pay for it.
Good point.
I didn't
They
see,
didn't have to pay for it, they just authorized the program and said cities and counties had to pay for it, and I think, and possibly they didn't anticipate, the volume, but, and this is an attractive place to live, so we're attracting people who want to move here, and then that's what the cost is.
I mean, I guess, and I guess some people would wonder why we camp out on this, but based on, just off the top of my head, I mean, this program alone is a 2-cent increase on our tax revenue, or our real estate tax.
Well, if you look at the
Coverage.
3.6 million, that's 5 cents.
Well, I was being
The
conservative.
overall amount, the overall amount right now is worth 5 cents. It's been increasing a penny a year for the last several years.
And you have to figure out a budget that allows you 6 months from now to cover the cost to pay people back for, what'd you say, 2012? That money has to come from somewhere.
That's impossible, yeah. I mean, we've had some really large increases of, tens of thousands of dollars that, I mean, there were the refunds that we have no idea they're gonna happen.
Mr. Keaton, the number that you showed in the beginning, the 600,000, make sure I got it correctly, that was tied to 3.1. And I think I remember you saying the actual number associated is gonna be budgeted at 3.6. Would that follow that the tax rate is 6 cents, 5 cents?
Well, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that that's something we've just learned in the last couple of days that was underestimated because it was an estimate when we were going through the process. And as we've worked the numbers a little more, we found that we were actually, I was mistaken. I was thinking that the number I was looking at was for a calendar year. And then when digging into the numbers with Ms. Doggett, found that that was actually the fiscal year and we were only partial year through the fiscal year. So that was just my misunderstanding of the numbers. And the fact that it is growing exponentially, that it's difficult to get a handle on it.
And unlike other parts of this budget, there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
You can't lay people off, you can't reduce services, you just have to eat it almost, basically.
That's exactly right. And we budget for it as an expense. So some localities may just, lower their estimate for their, tax collections, but we actually budget it as an expense in our non-departmental area to show exactly what it is. And it's to help us keep track of it and calculate what the cost is.
Well, Randy, did we see an increase in the social services budget over last year?
They had and we changed a little bit the way we calculate that, but it's a small increase. It's
Small
not much of an
increase.
increase, yes.
Does the salary amount for the county employees, your projection, include the pay study recommendations that we looked at in Personnel Committee?
No, this just is a flat 3%. I mean, this is just a 3% to cover the basic costs for
So if we were gonna
employees.
follow Michelle's recommendations for those numbers, it would be
And-
more?
Yes, exactly, it would be.
But that part is in non-departmental.
Oh, I'm sorry, the only amount we did was just to bring, it was certain employees to bring them up to the minimum. That's the only part we did. Was just bring, it was a number of employees to bring them up to the minimum once we moved the pay plan.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
That is in there, I'm sorry.
That's part of that pay study you were talking
Correct.
about, you were referring to.
How many new positions were you asked for from the department directors? I know you have a big notebook, a stack of requests from different departments. You say no new positions. I know the school asked for 14 new positions, but
I'm
What
certain,
was the
given our
request?
county, that there have been some other requests that you had to say no to.
We had, it was probably over a dozen, at least. I don't have that sheet right in front of me, but it was at least over a dozen, new employees. Now, we weren't proposing to include that many, but then so we had some that were maybe 5 or 6 that we were looking at. And then as we got deeper into the budget and found out what the tax increase would be, and I couldn't recommend any for the schools, so I couldn't recommend any for county employees, for county departments either.
is your department request book available to us this year? Do we need to?
We could make copies of it. It's a fairly large binder.
Yeah, I
but
don't need copies of the whole thing. I was just wondering if we could come by and look at it
Oh,
over the
sure.
next month as we deliberate.
Oh, absolutely.
Can you get a feel of what we're doing without, is what you guys were getting at?
And I could give you that spreadsheet. Michelle prepares a spreadsheet for us that shows what the personnel requests are, so I can send that to you.
That would be great.
The positions aren't in there, but all the other departmental requests are separated in the budget under departmental requests. So if you want to see what each department requested versus what was proposed, you could compare those two columns.
And that's one of the spreadsheets we already have.
Mhm,
Yes.
yeah.
And it's,
So this is starting to show, this information shows the summary, and it does show the first column, of course, shows the department, and then the current budget FY25, and then what's proposed for FY26, the difference, the percentage change and then any significant items. So of course we have, this shows, from Board of Supervisors all the way down to Clerk of Circuit Court. I will note that most of all of these, the only differences are just the salaries and benefits and changes in health, medical costs, because as you have changes in employees, some may have elected family coverage, or some may elect, just employee only, or if you get the retiree from the military, they don't take insurance at all. So it can vary wildly on sometimes on the medical costs. The clerk of court has one item in here. It's a $92,000 item, and it is for scanning, certain document scanning. Now, she's still in the process of getting bids on this, and Bobby can probably help me out on this. It is for a new program that's going to affect for sealing of records. And so you can go back and jump in and help me if I get this wrong. And so you can, if you had something happen when you were juvenile, I'll pick that, and you're now an adult, and you would like to go back and seal those records, there are certain types of crimes that can be sealed, and the clerk of court has to go through and research, pull all those files, and seal them. But if they scan the document, it's a very laborious process if they're going through paper records and doing it by hand. But a lot of places are scanning the documents, and it's a lot easier process, or a lot less time consuming to go back and then seal those records.
They're actually using almost the equivalent of whiteout on old documents, because they're just, it's a name it'd be like removing the assessment line on a printed sheet that everything else needs to remain. So it is quite labor intensive when they're expunging records.
So that's one cost. I just want to point that out. That is a significant cost, as a one-time cost for the clerk of court, and it could be lower than that. She's getting bids from companies that would come in and do that.
So as a one-time cost, we can't capitalize software expense?
It's not a capital expense. Now, it could be, we could use that as a fund balance appropriated item, because it is a one-time cost. It's not an ongoing cost if we had to do that.
It is.
Hmm?
It is in there, it's fund balance right now, the 92,000.
I thought we changed that because we changed the rate. Anyway, we'll look at that. Here's some more departments, from Commonwealth Attorney down to Public Works and Solid Waste. Again, most of these are salaries and benefits. We do have the volunteer fire and rescue in here. And like I said before, that is one of the items that is, part of it is benefits or costs associated with the volunteer departments, and then some of it is direct payments to them. One thing I would like to point out on solid waste, you're going to hear more about this in the next few months. And we'll actually have Dennis Bagley from SIPSA come and talk to the board. He's going around all the different localities. You've probably maybe seen some of the news about this new recycling program, AI, robotics, that is being proposed to change the way we sort our waste for SIPSA. Right now, because in Alawite County, if you go to one of our refuse and recycling centers, you're encouraged to sort your waste into cardboard container and then metals in another container, but you're not required to. And if you have, if you live in a neighborhood that has the automated cans that come by and pick up, you don't have to recycle. Well, there's a lot of recyclables, of course, in that waste. The cities are doing it, and a lot of the bigger cities are, they have a blue can for recyclables, and they have a black can for all the trash. Well, everything's getting mixed together. So there's just a lot of material that's not being recycled. So we're trying to look at a system that would go through and sort out the waste, and they're basically using robotics and different things, and then taking some of the organic waste and turning it into a product called biochar, which is like a carbon-based system, and reducing the waste that goes in the landfill. And Dennis will tell in more detail about that, but right now, this rate is at the old rate of $68 a ton, $65 a ton, excuse me. If we go into that system, that's going to dramatically increase that rate. But I'd say it's not yet, but if that goes through, it will drastically change. But the good thing is it will increase the life of our landfill by decades, because, and we have a very finite amount of landfill space, so that's something that we want to not put a burden on our kids and grandkids, but to try to extend the life of that landfill as long as possible.
How much money are we generating? I see a lot of trucks sometimes go down to the junkyard on 258. How much money are we generating from recycling or selling iron and
Over $100,000 a year.
over 100,000?
And of course, it depends, I think we have a budget around 130,000, I believe, for this coming year. Let's see. So we do receive a commission from the companies that operate in the county of about 48,000 on the pickups. And Stephanie, can you find this quicker than I can? Recyclables, 128,500. We have, one advantage we have is because we have our tenants there, we get pristine cardboard. So we're not, we're not getting all the junk that goes, so we don't have any waste material, and we take it directly to Butler Paper. So we take it directly to the end user, and they are very happy with our cardboard. So they're recycling the cardboard. But it's, we have the attendants there. And then with the metals, we take aluminum cans, steel cans from residents, and then any other kind of metal, and that goes to one of the recyclers here in the county. And so all that together, we generate over $100,000.
Do we segregate the aluminum from the metal?
They segregate it when they get it, so they separate it out.
Okay, good.
We just commingle all the metals, and then we sell it all in one bulk. Next, we have, this starts some more public works. Again, most of these are all salary and benefits. Community development, you see a decrease there, and that was for a software subscription that has been moved over to IT, and it's just a matter of changing the location of that cost. So that moved from community development. We're trying to put all of our software programs in the IT budget. And then again, we have our markets, communications, some of the smaller departments here. We have, of course, there is the schools right here. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah. So here is the school budget. Non-departmental, of course, is the big increase there was the tax relief. We have transferred other funds, it's a little bit down a little bit. Again, the debt service here. And then we have our nonprofit organizations and then contingency.
How many applications did you get for nonprofits?
I can get that to you. I'd have to count them up right this minute.
And
We
did you
did- we-
rank order them and only funds?
We
ones
had
that
some that
funded
we
in the
recommended
past?
for funding, some we did not recommend for funding, and some we did not recommend funding at the level they requested. So, one of them, there was a fairly large increase for Western Tidewater Free Clinic, and last year they'd actually gone down, which we thought was odd, but they requested less money, and then this year went up. They had a miscalculation last year, which caused that. So they basically take all the visits from all the localities that use their services and then calculate a pro rata share. And when we called them and asked them about it, they said they made a miscalculation last year, and so that's why they'd asked for less money. So it looks like a large increase, but it's just to level out what it should have been last year. We did put together this chart for you to show you where we rank as far as real estate tax rates. Now, some of these are FY25, some are FY26, because not everyone has published their budgets yet. But Southampton and Surrey were both at 71 cents this year. Of course, we were at 73 cents. But even with the proposed tax increase, we will still be the tied with York for the third lowest in the region. York was at 74 cents this year. They proposed a 4-cent increase, so we would be equal to them if both of them went through. And then you get James City County's at 83. Now we've got the Windsor Smithfield, that's the combined rate with their town taxes and their county taxes. So that's why it shows up higher. So the town of Windsor, based on their FY '25 rate and our FY '26 rate, would be 89. Town of Smithfield would be 92. Then you get into the cities, and you notice all the cities are above $1. So Franklin is the lowest city, and we took the cities that are right around us, not every city in Hampton Roads. City of Franklin is at $1.03, Suffolk $1.09, Hampton $1.15, Newport News $1.18. So again, some of these are FY '25 numbers, and I think Newport News has actually come out with their number at $1.18. I think they stay flat. Now, if you remember, the cities, you know, most all of them do assessments every year. They revise their assessments each year. We're on a 4-year assessment cycle, so we don't have the same growth that a lot of the cities do. Now, conversely, I saw that Chesapeake has their annual reassessment, plus they're adding 2 cents to the tax rate, or proposed 2 cents, and they're looking at for public safety purposes. So this just gives you some context of where we stand in the region, you know, before and after the proposed increase in the rate. So we're basically 30 cents or more below our neighboring cities. And of course, I think that's one of the reasons that people are moving to the rural communities, is because of the difference in the tax rates. I think York, James City are all seeing the same influx of people. Capital budget. So I'm going to go through this, and we'll talk about some of the changes here. So you'll see this, and let me finish this slide and I'll explain the differences here. So we're showing solar farm payment for Sycamore Cross of $1.5 million. That is the payment that once they get their site plan approved, they owe us another $1.5 million. We've already received $2 million from them. Fund balance, $4 million to come out of fund balance. Proffers, right now we have, this is subject to change, but this is the last time I checked, we had $760,000 in proffers for schools. I'll explain how we propose to use that. When I talked to the schools earlier, about a month or so ago, they thought they were going to have around $600,000 left over from the bond issue for the Carrollton HVAC project. I've asked them to clarify. They just received their bids the other day, so I need to find out. That might be a little bit lower than that. And then we would potentially need around $6 million for a new borrowing if the board wants to approve all the items in the capital budget.
So where did the $2 million from Sycamore Cross go? You know?
I'm going to get to that in a second. So proposed budget is $4 million. This is the school's request. I didn't change any of these items yet. They had requested the $4 million for the bus garage, $763,000 for 5 school buses, $1.4 million for the band room. Now the $760,000 in proffers can be used to do the band room renovation because it increases capacity at the high school. Because by moving the band room to this new facility, it frees up the other classrooms at the front of the building, so therefore, basically, we're covering half the cost of the band room renovation with proffers. Then you've got the weapons detection, not detention, and then the ADA bleachers. This is what they requested, 6.4. So here's where the $2 million for the that we've already received in money from the solar farm. So we had in the budget $1 million for the new Windsor engine, $500,000 for the Windsor Medic, and $500,000 for Isle of Wight Medic. So here's the thought, is that if we already have the $2 million in the budget now, it matches the $2 million for fire and rescue. Right now, the fire and rescue equipment is on a 2 to 3 year build. If we can go ahead and do a budget amendment now, since we already have that money in hand, this will allow them to get their trucks in ordered a few months earlier, maybe than some of our neighboring localities, so we can order now instead of waiting until July 1. So this isn't technically in the FY '26 budget. This would be right now, but it will allow us to get on the order a little bit sooner.
So not included in the budget, it would be spent from
Right.
money already received and spent in the current year.
Correct, that's right. We wanted you to see this, because that's what this would have been in the FY '26 budget, but since we already have the money in hand, thought it'd be better to go ahead and order the equipment now. And we talked about it today, it's just a matter of getting in order.
When we looked in CIP meeting, our committee the last time, we had budgeted 500,000 for medic and $1 million for fire.
That's correct. So the engine is for the Windsor Fire Department.
Right, so that's 1.5, not 2 million, so.
Well, then we also had another medic unit, the Windsor medic unit. Both of those medics units are in need of replacement, so that's why we're proposing to go ahead and replace 2 medic units, because both of them are in severe need of replacement.
So again, I have the apparatus spreadsheet from when we looked at it, and engine 41 Windsor was the top, and then medic 70 was the top for Windsor. So you're suggesting also replacing
The Isle of Wight medic.
medic 62?
Is it 60?
Yes, 62.
62. And that's the one that's been at Rushmere.
No, sir.
No.
That one's already in the replacement process.
That's right.
This one is the one that's got pushing 300,000 miles on it that had to be used because they had a medic unit out of service for a long
Correct.
time.
This is one of the reserve units that's been used as a frontline medic, because we had others that were down. So we've had a lot of issues with the one in Carsville. That's been down for extended periods of time. And so that is, and the Carsville medic is already on order, as well as the medic that will be going into Rushmere is already on order now.
So not to pick a nits, but when we rank order them according to age points, the Windsor medic 70 had an age point score of 17, which, anyway, that was the top one that needed to be
Mhm.
replaced. Medic 62 is a 2015 vehicle. It had an age point of 9 and a mileage of 209,000. So we've
Put a lot more
added
miles on it.
91,000 miles on it in the last year. And that's what my sheet says.
I would have to look. We don't even suggest they get replaced until they get to 30 points. So I would like to see what list that you were provided.
So right now for the engines throughout the whole county, is the base price gonna be $1 million or,
That's what we're guesstimating right now.
okay, all right.
Yeah, I think originally we were looking at 900,000. I think based on engines that have been ordered recently, of course, these are engines that'll be completed 3 years from now. The estimate is $1 million. But is that what you've seen over in, where you,
I mean, it's,
Points, sorry.
yeah, not unusual.
yeah,
Of course, at the end of the day, it depends on what you're buying.
right. And these are round numbers, so they're estimates.
I guess while we're kind of just touching on this, because I was just sitting here thinking about the cost of engines and stuff like that, there is an element here that a lot of other localities, I'm gonna use the word enjoy or should appreciate. That is that, you know, even if somebody can say, well, you can buy an engine for a little bit, just because we're bringing up engines, a little bit cheaper, look at the money we're saving with our volunteers. So, you know, they're tax, and the majority of our, I think it's fair to say, majority of our volunteers are taxpaying citizens.
Right.
So, you know, I hold my breath in that our volunteers continue to do all that they do with the millions that they save. So to kind of start dicing and talking about carving off money off their engines or medics in that matter, I'd be a little cautious at time. I think they can answer to it. I don't think they're wasting any money. But at the same time, Randy's kind of, well, we've all known this to be true.
Yeah, I'm great with this plan. Don't misunderstand that. I was just trying to tie it
There's
back
other people
to-
that would be watching this and say, yeah, I can buy one online for whatever. I don't know. I'm just making things up now, but
They looked on Facebook Marketplace and found a deal.
And the good thing is, we have a standard spec now for all of our medics. So all of our medics now are spec'd exactly the same, the boxes are the same, so that way, no matter who gets into a medic unit, whether it's a volunteer, career staff, they're gonna know where everything is, so everything's gonna be in the exact same place.
Have we really toured around, talked about rehab versus, you know, new construction, so to speak?
We have done that on a couple of medics, so, see, I know it,
I mean, even on fire trucks, even on, I'm
oh,
talking on fire
okay.
trucks.
And we've done it on medics, what, twice?
Twice that I know of.
Yeah.
We haven't done it on fire trucks, right?
No. We've done on
Would that be a
medics.
benefit, would it be a benefit to the county to maybe do that?
What do you run into sometimes is with the manufacturers, assuming we weren't going to put them on commercial chassis, is that a lot of these fire truck manufacturers are so backed up, have plenty of business, that they don't want to mess with a refurb, so they're not going to touch them. I mean, again, I know one manufacturer that, the tractor draw ladders, they went away from making those, even though they're like $2 million, because they can build almost 2 engines in the amount of time it would take to build that one piece of apparatus. So, there might be a place somewhere out there that's willing to pull stuff apart and put something back together for you. But I think on some of the big manufacturers, I don't think they do those ladder kits and stuff anymore, not that I'm aware of, but, I mean, I think it's worthy of us bringing it up in this.
Yeah, medic units have been traditionally done that way, and, because I've been involved with those in the past as well, where you basically buy a new chassis, you take the box off, refurb the whole box and put it on, so you're keeping the skin and the structure of the box, but you're redoing everything inside. And you save a fair amount, but it's still an expensive project, but you save a few $1,000s.
So will you bring this plan to our next regular scheduled meeting for action?
On the capital or the, oh, yes, yes, this will be on your next agenda, yes.
The regular meeting on the 17th.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next is public buildings, and we've got several items. So Carrollton Fire Department, that project was, we had to move the funding from that one last year to finish the Rushmere because we underestimated the cost of both projects, and so we had to pull that out. What I'm proposing to do this year, rather than put the whole amount in there, is at least get started on that project, do the design work, all the engineering work first, and then we can come back, in a future year with the funding of it. The Windsor Library, we've already started the design work, started some preliminary design work on that, so this would actually be for construction of that project if that moves forward. The Smithfield Library is a project that Tony's been working on for several years. Bids are coming next Friday. So this one actually might be accelerated, and we have to go ahead and take action now, so we might pull this out and just have to use fund balance for that. And then also, it's another project that's been on the works for a while, is the Public Works and Public Utility. If you've ever been over to the Public Works area, there's a green building there that has been jointly used by Public Works and Public Utilities over the years. Then we had this old broken down trailer that was next to it, which we had to tear down. So Public Utilities, we've long had a plan to build about a 2,500 square foot addition to that metal building. It'll be a metal building as well. And then to separately, over behind near the animal shelter, or the old animal shelter, is to just build a tractor shelter with a small area for some bathrooms and offices in there for the public works staff, mostly for the solid waste, to get the trucks out of the weather and have a place for staff there. So to finish both of those projects, we're estimating about $500,000. We have had some money budget for that. We just need some additional money to complete those two projects.
Mr. Keaton, the HVAC system for the Smithfield Library, what was the scope of work that money covered?
So that is replacing the roof on the existing, so, the library is at the bottom, and then Camp Community College is on the second floor. So this is the roof of that entire portion of that building. Not the YMCA, but just the portion where the library and Camp Community College is. And it's to replace all the HVAC units and the roof on that building. And we have some money in the budget. This is what we estimate to take to finish that project.
Are we
Tony,
asking
is
Paul
that-
DeCamp to cost share in that?
No, we're responsible for the building. Tony, is that
We're
Give a
doing
little more-
10,000 square foot roof, and we're doing 16 units. And we have pre-purchased the units and the curbs, so it will be the HVAC system, the mechanical, electrical, and control system, along with the 10,000 square foot roof, EDPM or TPO, I think it's TPO.
What's the size of the units?
I'm sorry?
The 16 HVAC units, what are the size of those?
I think they range from 1 to 3 tons.
1 to 3 tons? And they're commercial or residential?
Actually, the 11 units are residential, and 3 are commercial, 3-phase.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir?
Lastly, we have some Parks and Recreation projects. These, I don't have the breakdown of these, but I see Mike is in the room. These are some projects that we have been working on. I know one of these, you probably-
Additional funding for Bradley Park. I believe there's some playground equipment, and there's one other.
What we were looking for was for additional funding to finish Bradley Park. So we do have some money now.
Right.
This would be additional because based on the construction estimate that we have, it would be to replace one more playground and for design of restrooms.
Restrooms,
at
yes, Heritage Park.
Yeah.
Oh, finally.
So we've been looking at several options for design. One has been a modular type of building out there. One has been a stick-built building, so we're still, I think, evaluating those options.
Yes, sir, yeah. As it turns out, many of the modular designs for what we're looking for, which is about 6 to 8 restrooms, including family restrooms, are about the same price as stick-built. So they're still pretty expensive. And we looked at portable, but those aren't building compliant or ADA compliant, they're pretty nice.
And the way we're looking at that, if you're probably thinking, well, where's it going to go? So we're looking at actually building these over by the end, right between the bull riding ring and the first shelter. Put them at the end there, and actually having a pump tank outside the fence that we would pump out, so we'd be a holding tank, and we would be able to have some real restrooms there, but yet we still, of course, don't have sewer there. So.
And Randy, you might want to know that part of that strategy is that would then allow us to market those shelters for events. We're not really able to do that now because we don't have restroom facilities. So in essence, that would put us in a position to perhaps create some revenue streams.
Mm-hmm.
Randy, last CIP meeting, we looked at Parks and Rec budgeting $125,000 for capital maintenance and $90,000 for Riverview Playground.
Riverview is in this, yes, in this project.
So-
And then utilities, the 2 million is not for any specific project, but for all of the variety of projects we have going on. Of course, you're well aware of the challenge we have right now at the Windsor vacuum system. We have a number of pump stations we still need to replace in the Gatlin Point neighborhood. We've completed one, we're in the process of doing another one, and I think we have a couple more there that still need to be done, because they're all about the same age. So this number could be a lot bigger. We're just trying to put in enough money that we think we could do in 1 year. So this is an ongoing project for replacement of pump stations, and specifically the Windsor vacuum system.
It doesn't represent anything for the water tank at all?
No, that's fully funded.
That's what I
Yeah,
thought.
that's already funded.
Does that 2 million include, I think we looked at maybe 1.7 million repairs in Windsor, or is this in addition to?
No, this is just $2 million to go as far as it'll go, and we don't know what the Windsor will cost, and we have some more of the pump stations as well. And in addition to that, we also have 1.5 million in the water and sewer fund for capital maintenance repairs. So these would be ongoing repairs. So basically, we would have $1.5 million in repair and maintenance, plus a $2 million in capital projects.
And the Windsor Library project was initially slated for 26, 27?
I don't recall exactly what year it was, but yeah, we were gonna, because initially we talked about using the solar farm money to help do the Windsor Library, because that would be a community benefit for that area of the county. Yes, because we already had money, we had planned to do that library 3 years ago, because we were trying to plan to expand the existing library.
So, 2.5 million on my sheet was 26, 27. I appreciate that the amount came in under.
Well, 2.5 million, we already have some money in the budget from when we were planning to do the other library expansion, so the total is still 2.5.
And does that include any credit for the sale of the current building?
No, not yet. We don't know what that would be. Of course, we don't own the land there, so we only own the building. So that's going to
Yeah, I
be
understand. It'll
good.
just be a negotiation with the town of Windsor, I'm
Right.
guessing.
Next is utility and stormwater funds, and right now I just have the cost of increases. We'll get you well, you have the utility fund in your budget, but like I hit some of the high points of the cost. So we're proposing a 66-cent increase for water per 1,000 gallons, and a 43-cent increase for the monthly meter fee. Right now, we have a odd number of $33.14, excuse me, $36.14. This would just raise that to $37. And then the sewer increase would increase from $7 to $9 for sewer per 1,000 gallons. We haven't increased the sewer fees in a number of years, but with all of the increases in cost for sewer, specifically with the Windsor system, and then with a lot of these other systems we have throughout the county, the pump stations, and then we don't have our own vac trucks for vacuuming out the systems, so we're spending a lot on contractors, outside contractors, so this will help cover some of that cost. And then you see there at the bottom a $500 increase in water and sewer connection fees. Right now, the water fee is $4,500 per connection. This would rise to $5,000. Sewer is $4,000, would rise to $4,500 for the connection fees. And we're still well below a lot of our neighboring jurisdictions, so that does not put us above our neighbors. But we're seeing the need for more. Our capital costs are rising, and we need a way to pay for these capital costs in both departments.
So Randy, just to be clear, the 60-cent increase for water per 1,000 gallon is not really up to us. That's set by the Water Authority?
No, this is what we would set. We pay the water. So the water, our cost for water is going up by 4%. And so we're basically saying we need to raise our rates to keep up with that. So we had to raise our rate, and then but the water utility raised our rate for purchasing the water. The Western Tidewater Water Authority.
So the water rate, yeah, I remember that
So altogether, this would be about a 4.5% increase for the typical homeowner that uses 5,000 gallons on the water. On the sewer, it would be $10 per month increase if you have sewer on top of water. I think the cost per, the total cost for water for 5,000 was it was a little less than $4, $3.70-some. So if you take the water and sewer together, it'd be about a $13 increase in the water and sewer fees.
per month.
For 5,000 gallons.
Per month.
Per month, correct. And again, part of this is just a pass-through because we buy the majority of our water from Western Tidewater Water Authority. We also buy water from Smithfield, Windsor, and Franklin. So we buy water from a lot of different people.
Sometime back, we talked about homeowners could maybe have a new meter, or another meter put in to bypass the water that's actually going to be going through the house and into the sewer system, because some waters be washing cars or watering flowers. Do we have that program going on?
No, we talked about that a lot. I think the last conversation we had when Don Jennings was still here is that we recommended not to, but we had very few people that asked for that. And we also capped the water at 15,000 gallons. So if you use more than 15,000 gallons, we don't charge you for that other 15,000 for sewer anyway. So that it is capped. But the cost for installing these, they call them deduct meters. So basically, you have one meter for your lawn system and washing your cars, and then your meter for your house, and you take the full amount, and then you deduct the amount that goes through the other meter. The cost of that, plus keeping up with that, just didn't seem like it was very cost-effective for the very few number of people that requested it.
The other people end up paying for the meter that doesn't make up the difference, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
You know the study that was due by October with regard to water lines and materials, is
That's
that
for
gonna
copper and
cost?
lead,
Right.
yes, copper and lead, yeah, we completed that, we submitted that to EPA, there was a requirement, there was an October deadline, you're correct, of submit that information, we did submit that, it was around 300 some, potential services we identified, so now, the plan is to start that process and try to do about 10, you have to do it within 10 years. So start replacing those, and a lot of those are in the Camptown area, because that's where some of the oldest systems are at, is to go in and identify. One thing we're still trying to determine, so we can replace the service line coming from the main to the meter, and replace this stuff, but they're also requiring us to go up to the house as well. And so we've got to figure out the easement process, because once we get on private property, we've got to have I guess, some kind of easement from the homeowner to do work on their property. And then, once you get to the house, it's their responsibility to change any plumbing they may have inside their house.
So is that budgeted?
That would be part of this capital cost, to try to knock out some of these each year.
But we're not really responsible beyond the meter to the house.
That's what we would think as well, but that's not what they're requiring, because it could be galvanized pipe going from the meter to the house, and galvanized pipe is considered suspect for lead content. So yeah, this is an EPA requirement.
But if if it's galvanized pipe, you know it's galvanized pipe, you don't have to replace that pipe until you have a defect or something, or do you have to go ahead and
I think you have to
that pipe?
replace it all the way up to the house. You know,
All right, right.
previously, yeah. Now, there are some grant funds, if they haven't been canceled yet, to hopefully help with some of that. But that's what that's what we're researching, to see if there are any grant funds available for that. But that is, now, we're lucky because we only have 300 or so. Some of these older cities have tens of thousands of, these to do. But we have discovered a couple of actual lead, service lines going to the meter.
So
And we-
10 years, you would do 30 a year?
Try to do, about 30 a year. Yeah.
We didn't do we kinda don't do the lead and copper sampling.
Yes, we do.
We do, from each home.
No, because usually you only do the ones that are the older homes, but before a certain date. And of course, we don't, the only reverse osmosis water we purchase is from Smithfield. And of course, we just started purchasing that water from Smithfield. Well, I'll take it back. We've always purchased for Gatlin Point. We just started purchasing for the areas out there by Hardy. Reverse osmosis water can be more aggressive, and usually there's it can cause the lead solder to leach out into the water. So it's not that the water has lead in it, the water causes the lead to leach out of the solder in these older homes. So that's where the issue is. But yes, we do perform lead and copper testing. So that's the final slide for tonight. Now, you have your books in front of you, and the books have all of the information we went over tonight, all of the charts, and all the detailed budgets for each department. So you have those. I can provide any additional information between meetings, so if you have specific items you'd like for us to bring back to you, please let me know. If there are any other items you'd like to discuss tonight.
Certainly invite the board members to look through this and maybe do like I did some this week and some others did, and have some questions for Rainey that he's more prepared to address. But we certainly have quite a hill to climb in front of us in terms of cost versus revenue, or expenditures versus revenue, and we need to really dig in on this.
Ernie, you didn't call our attention to any any other big increases in fees of other types? I mean, you mentioned that.
We don't have any other increases in fees.
There's some minor increases. We'll provide that.
Yeah,
information.
Those are the big ones we proposed, were the water sewer fees. Usually every year we look, now we are working on stormwater, so we'll be coming back to you with a recommendation on probably reduce the stormwater fee. We don't, we're still trying to calculate a couple of numbers there, but since we've turned the stormwater design and inspection program to the state, we feel like we can reduce that fee some more, and because we're not going to have to be paying that cost out to a private consultant.
As we see more units come online, especially up by Carrollton and things like that, certainly over this last year and the next couple of years coming, do you see any reduction in terms of what we pay for water, our water usage and those rates? See it impacting that much at all?
I really don't, because we're still, each year we have an increase, or every other year we have an increase in the water reservation fee with the Norfolk Water. And of course, we use more water every year, so we're going to be, and of course, the Water Authority, their costs go up each year, which, we're 25% of that. And so yeah, the cost of water treatment and the reservation fee will continue to go up, hopefully smaller amounts each year. But there is an increase in cost there each year.
We didn't meet our water consumption for even this year, of what was budgeted.
The infrastructure, the water infrastructure for the hospital in that area, I know that you've kind of briefed us over the last several years on that project, the tower, et cetera. Without getting diving into it deeply as far as a financial aspect on that, where are we on that? Is there more obligations ahead of us as far as financial obligations for that?
No, the bids are coming in. We've changed the bid date. We were scheduled to open bids middle of this month. We had some questions from bidders, and we've come back with some answers for them, so we've bumped it out to, I believe, May 8th now. We'll be opening bids for the water tower. We feel like that is fully funded, and we'll find out for sure when we open the bids, and then we hope to begin construction on that, early summer.
And that'll be in place in time for the hospital?
Yes. Well, I'll take it back. We'll have a solution for them in time for the hospital. We won't have the water tank up and running. So the solution is to put an inline pump in there and provide the fire flow until the tank is built. So we have an answer for that. Unfortunately, the cost of, the time to build these towers is a lot longer than it was. We built the Hardy tank. It was, I think, 7 or 8 months, and that's what we had anticipated, but every bidder that came in said, they can't meet that timeline, so it'll be built, but it will not be built in time for the hospital to open, but we have sufficient pressure there. We include an inline pump to boost the pressure up for fire protection.
When we look at our fee schedule, I'm just trying to figure out a way that particularly people that have lived here a number of years, fixed income, et cetera, what I like to call trying to find affordable housing for people who have been here to, say, remain in their homes and make it affordable. Would it be an exercise, or would it be worth the exercise of looking at our fee schedule and kind of balancing it more on, instead of everybody paying, or some people that pay in for what other people use, that it become more attached to what people use, I guess is the best way to put it.
And that's what we're trying to do with the increases in the fees. The sewer fees have not kept up because we've been focused more on water, but now with the sewer infrastructure needing a lot of attention, we need to boost those up. Increasing the connection fees so that the new construction will pay for itself, closer.
Well, and I should never think out loud, but here I go. When you look at like trash pickup, I know that several months ago, if not a year or more ago, it changed vendors, and that's a whole other discussion, but the point was, I was surprised. I never knew how much it cost to have your trash picked up at your curb, and that it was even an option in some parts of our county, and I lived here all my life, just never paid attention to it. But I guess my point would be, even if there's a fee associated with it, like trash pickup, the person who is using it is paying for it.
Correct.
And as opposed to, in our waste management guys and gals at the refuge centers, or whatever we're calling them nowadays, they do a great job. But there's still a number of, I'm sure, trash and stuff that goes in there that doesn't come from our county, doesn't come from our residents, but we're paying for it. I guess where we look at fees, where it's maybe at least people would consider things like trash pickup And then you may realize some additional savings down the road that you're not having to have as many people at Refuge Center, or, I don't know. But I guess you know better because you've done this for many years. If there's anything in the fee schedule, things that we should look at, if not during this budget year, but in the future, to try to make it more affordable for people who have lived here a number of years and are just trying to stay in their homes.
Well, I think you have two things. So, of course, we don't have a solid waste fee like some localities have for our refuse and recycle centers. They're, you know, our neighbors to the west of us, Southampton, they have a solid waste fee of, I believe it's $200, that everyone pays a flat rate to help cover their, you know, solid waste program. And I know other localities have the same type of program. A lot of the cities have a solid waste trash fee, a pickup fee. So in our case, you know, we don't charge anything for the refuse and recycling centers. And then, you know, if you live in a neighborhood and you opt for the door-to-door service, you know, you pay for the service, but we pay for the disposal of the trash that comes from that, because it could just as easily come to one of our centers. So the company doesn't pay for the disposal of trash, they just charge the customer for the service to pick it up.
And I guess my intention is not to grab some more money through fees, but to try to offset some of the taxes if we could.
And that is an option. I mean, now, there is consequences to solid waste fees, because, you know, that can be a touchy subject as well, but that is an option to have a flat rate for solid waste fees, and it can be billed a variety of ways. It can be billed on with their tax bills and split it up on the tax bills. But that is certainly an
I mean, you
option.
take a home that only uses one trash can compared to a home that uses two trash cans. At the end of the day, if my house generates enough trash where I need to rent or pay for two trash cans at the curb, I'm paying for it. Y'all aren't paying for it when y'all only use one trash can.
Mhm.
And again, I'm not trying to find more ways to pull more money out of people's pockets, but try to offset the impact on taxes.
I pay for all my trash cans because I'm in the town. Just FYI, yeah.
I can't afford to live in town. I'm just kidding. You know I am.
Yeah, but I mean, certainly, there's two different ways to look at it. You can either, you know, charge a user fee with the trash, or charge it through taxes. And I can give you arguments either way. You know, if you charge the, one argument's always been that it's fair to businesses to charge a user fee, because businesses are essentially helping to pay for the residential pickup through their taxes.
Right.
And they can't use it. They can't bring their trash to the refuse and recycling centers. 'Cause it's only for
Right. And I
residential
guess, you
trash.
know, we talked about, again, not to pick on one program, but, you know, my home generates a certain amount of revenue, and out of that revenue, we're expected to pay for my trash, and if I have kids in school, et cetera. If my house generates no revenue, you're still, somebody's paying for my trash, and if I'm living in there, the only way you're gonna collect it is through my taxes, and if I don't have taxes on my residence that's paying for it, then somebody else is paying for it.
Right, that's correct.
Mr.
Other
Keaton,
comments?
could you remind me, the 2016 bond, there's a small value one, I think it's around just over 160K. What the category that is used on or can be used on?
That was for the Motorola system when we redid all the radio system, the 800 megahertz system throughout the county. And we have a small balance. We're still trying to finalize with Motorola for it's basically their contingency amount, the retainage amount from the system. So I'm gonna have that taken care of before June 30th.
Has the system been signed off? Is it completed now, and we're now responsible for maintenance?
That's what I'm waiting for from Motorola. Yeah, because the last thing was for the HVAC system for the 911. So they had to replace that 3 times, I think.
So if I understood, there's at least a portion of the maintenance cost that we're not having to bear right now because it hasn't been turned over to us.
Correct, that's right.
So if it's turned over with us before you leave, is it in this budget to take care of the?
Yes, we put in especially for the generators, because the generators was the big thing for all the towers. So we put in for that.
But you say that bond balance will be
Yeah, that'll be
evacuated
wiped out,
before
yes.
June 30th?
We owe Motorola about $300,000. And we have the bonds, and we also have the interest on the bonds will pay for that.
Right, so cumulatively, that's about that amount.
Yep.
Understand.
So if we recommend a decrease from your proposed capital budget, that decrease in expenditure would come out of proposed bonds?
proposed bonds or fund balance or whichever the case is. Yeah, we could probably certainly go with bonds first, yeah, after we reduce the amount of bonds. Because we certainly don't want to borrow any more than we have to.
One point that's been brought up by Mr. Akery, and it's been brought up before, and I don't know if you could answer that right now, but when we're talking about affordable housing, we're talking about our senior population and the impact on them. You know, when we start talking about some of the potential increases here, it's significant. What, do you know what percentage of our current population fits into that senior category, by any chance?
Now, do you mean senior income, senior that would be eligible for the elderly and disabled?
Disabled, but as well as those that are at retirement age and are taking retirement. I want to be sensitive to that too as we try to work through this whole process. And so how many of our, what's the average citizen? I think probably we need Waltney here for that, but, you know, how many, what's the percentage of citizens in our county that are at retirement age?
So we get the information for you from the Planning District Commission, because they have it broken down, and they brought that to us before, that showed how many people in Isle of Wight are over the age of 65, and they had that chart that shows all the nice little bulges with the you know, different age groups. So I could get that for you. Now the hard question is, how many of those seniors are low income? You know, that's the number that we wouldn't really be able to tell you, because we have a lot of seniors that are, you know, well positioned financially, so that's not the same question.
And then along with that, I think the thing that we have to consider too is when we have new hires coming into the county for emergency services, for teachers and situations like that, and they're just trying to get in their first starter home. Again, affordable housing and taxes and things like that really hit them as well. And we need to kind of know what that's looking like, because the impact to them is just as significant. You know, some people might be saying, look, I can't afford to live here because I can't make enough to pay for a new home or to get into a home. Or I'm gonna have to rent, and sometimes rental has been very, very difficult because we don't have a lot of opportunities for rental in our current county.
Well, as you know, it's a real challenge to try to get affordable housing. I'd say that's a huge challenge, to say the least. That's why it's important that we also look at our compensation for our employees. I know if a person may sit on this board, it's traveled 30, 45 minutes at least, one direction to another locality, and worked there for over 30 years and never could afford to live in that county. But I was telling myself I was able to provide for my family. I was willing to make the trip because it was an atmosphere, they paid well, et cetera, so on. And I think that's another element to that. You know, if we want we'll keep good employees, we want to attract good employees. Not all the time can we provide the housing, because it's so competitive. I mean, you put affordable housing on the market, next thing you know, somebody buys it up for rental. It makes it an investment. But I think it's why employee compensation is just so important. And we all realize there are people on fixed incomes. Mr. Grace used to bring up, you know, how much senior citizens we get on Social Security increase, et cetera, so on. But as we all know, these are a lot of times families that are trying to take care of children, put them in school, and all the things that we do with a family, and a 1% or a fraction of a percent just doesn't cut it. And people say, well, they can go somewhere else. Well, in this job client, they will go somewhere else. There's a city down the road or a county down the road that's probably willing to take care of them. So we all know that's a balance, but I think it's important that our citizens understand that we have to keep that in mind too.
I do think two policy statements, if you will. I don't exactly know what to call these two things, but I think two things would help. One is that when I speak, it's fun to talk about, not fun, but it's easy to say affordable housing, right, and throw it in a bucket. Fact of the matter is, nobody really knows what the definition of affordable housing is. So,
True.
you know, I think we could go a long way as a body, and I don't even know if this is legal, but to say, you know what, in Isle of Wight County, we think, you know, we kind of ascribe to the fact that affordable housing is, I mean, the most widely accepted definition is 30% of median household income per year a family can afford to spend on housing. So if we came out and said we have a policy statement, or again, some kind of definition of that, I do think that that would help us know when we get
At least
there.
defined it.
Yeah, I mean, does that make sense? Like right now, we don't have a definition.
And you bring up a good point, because if the salary range in another locality, what's affordable to them based on their salaries that they would have in that locality would be different than ours.
And the second point speaks to that I have that bears defining, and it's something that came up in our personnel committee meeting. Supervisor Jefferson and I were in, whenever that was, before our last meeting. And that's when you talk about salary surveys and, min, median, and max kind of county employees. We looked at these charts, and HR's done a fantastic job surveying the market and making sure we're at the minimum salaries for especially the lower level job codes. I don't know if I'm saying that right or not. But, as a body, we could also come up with a definition or a policy statement that outlined what threshold as a percentage of median income we're accepting of, right? Because there were some job codes, especially on the lower ends. I mean, help me out here, but there were some job codes where we were less than 60% of market. When you're talking about healthcare and you're trying to recruit nurses, as you know, healthcare entities try to stay within 90 to 110% of average RN pay rate in the area, because otherwise you're not going to get nurses. So I think the same kind of, again, policy statement or just ideal is something that we should look at and consider adopting. And kind of when I drew a line on the sheet when we looked at it, 60% of the median from the salary survey seemed reasonable to me. And that's not something that I think we could get to in 1 year. Perhaps that's a phased-in plan over 3 years or whatnot. But I do think we owe it to set some kind of policy statement or definition around that as well, as far as our pay practices go.
I think one thing the board talked about a couple of years to try to get our minimum, our minimum salaries up to at least $15 an hour, and we've done that. We had a phase-in approach. We went to $12.50 and $13.50, and now we're above $15 on all of our pay ranges for the entry-level positions. So.
Yeah, you're making those changes as part of this budget. I mean, we discussed that. I'm talking about a policy statement with regard to percentage of market when we do a salary survey.
Right, I'm saying it's the same kind of discussion we had a few years ago about trying to get above the minimum, because the state's still lower than we are. But you're right. I think you're exactly right. We have to look at those, because those are the positions that are hardest to fill.
Yeah, as long as I'm throwing out things we should look at. I also really believe after our meeting with the school board last Thursday, I guess I didn't realize, obviously the health insurance rate increase for their team members is untenable, right? It's a lot. And it's because it's a self-funded plan. And that plan is not affordable for those team members. And there are team members, right? They all belong to Isle of Wight County, whether it's school or other. And so I do believe we should try to make it so that moving the schools to the local choice plans, I mean, they've indicated a willingness to do that. Their concern is the run rate or the payout rate of claims, because they are self-insured. So, I would ask this body to also consider a pledge to cover that run rate with reserves or, however we do it to make it affordable for them to move on to local choice. That would then provide affordability in rates and also allow them to have the retiree benefit.
It could be an opportunity also for them to put some extra, well, they already have skin in the game, but remain in the game. And that, I think when we talked about it the other day or at our last meeting, right after our last meeting, that liability, if you will, that they share in it, we work out an agreement, because like you said, at the end, if we can improve that, that'll help with recruitment and retention. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it'll help us with any buying power, but it would definitely help with recruitment and retention.
Again, if that was the barrier that they said, and you all heard that last Thursday, if that was a barrier that they're concerned about is the run rate of the payout of claims, perhaps as their funding body, we could secure that to make them feel like that was doable.
As you would say, as we're looking at things.
Correct.
I don't know that I've seen it lately, and that is the number of positions we have open. Is there a way to get information on the number of positions we have open? And if we can include the schools, that'd be great, but really just county, I'm just asking for this part. How long it takes for these things, how long have they been open? And if we could show a trending of how long these positions remain open and when we're trying to fill them. I know it might be apples and oranges, but I think it would speak to our recruitment efforts and some of the challenges, because I hear other governments, and I think you've even mentioned at times, people come in, you'll have 3 or 4 good candidates you really want, and you make offers, and at the end of the day, they just basically walk away from the table. And you're at times having to pay somebody to come in and paying them more than the person who just left. I'm assuming, because I know other localities are having to do that just to get somebody in the door. And obviously, we are the center of Hampton Roads, but as I spoke earlier, a lot of our employees have to travel, or at least look at traveling to get employees. So would that be possible? Do you think that would be beneficial, Randy?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we talk about that, at the staff level is certain positions, how long it takes us to fill those positions. And we've had some positions, we've just had to give up and just say, we just can't get anybody. I'll give you an example. We couldn't find anybody for the Assistant Director of Community Development for planning and zoning. We finally had to just give up and say, okay, let's just try to promote from within, go to a senior
Restructure.
level and restructure, because we just couldn't find anybody.
And eventually that well runs dry because you only restructure so many times.
Yeah.
And it also, for people who are looking at career advancement, when you keep moving you don't mean to, but when you keep moving the mark on them, they don't even know if the position they were going for 2 years ago is even going to be there 5 years, 10 years from now, right?
Well, and we were able to, like I say, promote some existing staff to higher level positions. And so we're hoping to build that person up and build those positions up so they can, move into that position eventually. But yeah, it was just so difficult to find anybody that, we would get, handful of candidates and then some wouldn't even.
Sometimes one.
Yeah,
And they'd be out of state.
yeah.
So, tough.
Sounds like talent back applications for Board of Supervisors. Don't get very many.
Would the board like to take a 5-minute recess and then come back and discuss policy after you're done, Randy, with your
Sure.
presentation? Take a 5-minute break.
I, along with Attorney Jones, I'm glad that the sheriff, Captain Potter is still here, but I brought up in the meeting that I called into, I brought up consideration of a noise ordinance, a draft noise ordinance amendment. And I think that there's been one change since then. Not that I want to vote on anything, I just wanted to talk about it again to make sure we were all on the same page. Mr. Jones, has there been an amendment since the last meeting?
The only change to what was presented last time was that the noise ordinance had throughout one of the regulatory items, if I can find it, was that it talked about if the noise could be heard inside an enclosed dwelling unit or across a property line. And in speaking with the sheriff's office, the idea of the property line being in there was still problematic. That was something Mr. McCarty had picked up from, I think, another jurisdiction. And the idea being that, if it's, you're inside your house, you don't hear the noise, but you step outside and where's the property line? And so just remove that entirely. That's the only change that's been made. And what's in your packet, I don't believe Mr. Robertson, I made the change. I think I discussed it, but I did not update what was in the board's agenda. But throughout there, you'll see language regarding being able to hear it across a residential property line. But so that was removed, and no other changes were made. I did have a chance to talk with Captain Potter regarding this, and with that change, the sheriff's office thought that they could adequately enforce this. Now, if there's other tweaks about what noises you're trying to prohibit, that's something else. They were able to compile how many calls were made, and I have left that on my desk, so I'm hoping Captain Potter may know that number.
Over 250.
It was 250. Most of which were warnings, I think. It was not egregious violations. It was, somebody went out, they brought it up, and the person stopped doing what they were doing.
And that was only after 12, sorry, only after midnight, because
Now,
that's when I was
this was all noise complaints. I know that there was a number of complaints about some logging operations that were starting at 6:45 when the time was 7. And so then they went out, and so instead of cutting trees, they were just prepping everything before 7 o'clock, and then they had to go back out and say, no work, you can show up on site, but no work being done before 7. And that's specific to the logging operation.
And there's no mention of decibel meters
No.
in this ordinance, yeah.
But it also had something in here about even for lawn care providers. You can't, well, I got to say it now. You're not supposed to start until after 7 o'clock. But when it's 95 degrees in the morning, 6 o'clock is a great time to go to work.
You're not saying you do that, you're just saying it's a good time to go to work.
Yeah, it's a great time to go to work. So, I mean, I think we do need to look at it very closely when we talk about time for businesses to start, because businesses start early for a reason.
Right.
And 7 o'clock in the morning, most folks are either up or getting ready to get up anyway.
When you get ready to get up, you're gonna start cutting grass out front.
Right.
Well, I mean, that applies to in so many areas. Having worked a lot of years in construction, roofers is the same way, framers the same way. I mean, they have to take a break in the afternoon, it's just too hot.
Right.
But at the end of the day, sheriff's department shows up, today's supposed to be 100 degree, 100 and some heat warning. I'm doubting very serious they're showing up at 6:30 and telling somebody to shut the lawnmower off when the person says, I don't know. Probably very subjective, isn't it, Sheriff?
And that's not the type of complaint that we were really trying to get to. That would be, a minority by far of I think what people are talking about. People are talking about more densely populated areas of the county where there's household noise. I mean, I would entertain an amendment or some kind of edit that spoke specifically to landscaping services if you thought that made the ordinance more palatable.
But what it says right now is to create any noise that is plainly audible inside the confines of an enclosed dwelling of another person in a residential area between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. in connection with lawn care, leaf removal, gardening, tree maintenance, or the removal and other landscaping, lawn, or timbering activities. So, I mean, it's fairly expansive right now that you're not supposed to be running a lawnmower before 7 o'clock. And it doesn't say that it's commercial. I mean, if I go out and start cutting my grass because it's summer, it's light at 5:30, and it's going to be hot, and I've got things to do in the afternoon, and I cut my grass at 6:30, I'd be in violation of this if somebody can hear it.
But also typically, I mean, a lot of times what you have is, I live next door to Miss Roundtree, and I don't like the way she parks her car. So I know it gets under her skin, so at 6 o'clock, I always make sure I blow off my sidewalks. It at least gives that neighbor something to say, this is ridiculous. As opposed to Mr. Jefferson showing up and just trying to get the yard cut. But chances are, somebody's not calling about him, I'm
No.
guessing.
And you'd have to hear it from inside your house.
And like item E on item I on page 3 or 4, yelling, shouting, whistling, or singing between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. I mean, if I whistle, I don't think it's gonna go
I don't know.
within the
I've
compound of
never heard you
somebody's
whistle,
home.
so.
And if we do, then we need to
Sheriff up here
look
and
at
listen to
having the walls of home, maybe all the new construction be, have some type of sound barrier installed. Because, I mean, some of this stuff is just way out in the field, I think.
You won't be able to sing and blow a whistle. You won't be able to sing and blow a whistle.
Yeah, if I need to whistle, if I need to shout at somebody, I'm gonna shout. Whistle too.
You get it over with before the sheriff's department shows up, you all right?
Well, when the sheriff department get there, I won't be whistling.
Then there you go.
Well, then you have no problem.
Yeah, but we got somebody calling in a complaint that saying we got a problem, we really don't have a problem.
I got a text tonight while we've been meeting, just around the time we went to recess. And can you do something about this? The neighbor's dogs are on our front porch barking, and they have like a ringer thing, and her phone's blowing up because the neighbor's dogs are on her front porch in the camera view and all that, barking. So,
Sounds more like a animal control issue than a noise issue.
I think it's both, but
So I guess the yelling and shouting is so that I'm living at a townhome and next door the neighbors go at it every morning at 5 before they go to work. I can at least sleep until 6. That's probably the intent.
7.
Well, I get up at 6, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of the intent there. To say, well, I'm not playing music, all I'm doing is yelling at my wife. I mean,
oh my. Any comments from the sheriff's department?
what do y'all think about shouting and yelling and whistling and singing at 6 o'clock in the morning? There you go, Mr. Jefferson.
Oh my.
All right, so I, again, just wanted to have some more discussion on this. There would be many citizens who would be happy if we were able to adopt an ordinance such as
Where do
this.
most of the complaints come from?
Ben's grant.
Ben's Grant.
I mean, as far as the complaints that I've received from citizens, but I don't know, the 250 calls you had.
I can have that breakdown for you, Mr. Jefferson, let you know what geographical area the call would come from. I can get that information for you.
Thank you. I think we need to know that.
And this is something to consider when we look at density.
Okay, well, again, I wasn't, I knew we wouldn't take action on it tonight, just wanted to have another discussion, since I wasn't in person last time. Thank
We
you.
try to make it lively for you. I thought it was lively.
Any other comments on
What's
that?
the next step on this?
Get some more information and move it to the action item agenda, I guess,
You bring it to the meeting.
to the meeting.
Well, it'll have to be advertised, so I think before we can advertise, we need to have a consensus about what this is gonna look like. So at the next meeting, pare it down to say, this is what this body wants to advertise, I mean, I can't advertise it for your next meeting, it'll be, May is the earliest it can be advertised, so we can talk about it next month and half, because when I advertise, I'm supposed to have the ordinance available for inspection. Now, that doesn't mean it can't be modified, but we gotta be, you know, you can't advertise an apple and then show up with an orange. So,
So edit in May and then the public hearing potentially the month after?
Yes.
Thanks.
Well, actually, we could have the public hearing in May.
right, public hearing and action.
Public hearing and action, okay. Thanks.
The ads are due the newspaper typically tomorrow after your work session, the Friday after your work session at 9 a.m. So
Do you have enough to do that?
I have a budget ad that's due to the paper tomorrow morning, so let's not do the noise.
Okay. Good.
Thank you.
Before we move on, as we were going to recess for a few minutes, Sheriff, you offered up some information, and I'm going to ask the board's pleasure, but do you have some comments in regard to this? Since we'd be seeing it for the first time tonight, but is there anything that you would like to say? Is that okay, board members?
No, just, good evening, everyone. It was just my sheriff's office summary to kind of administrative staff on what we requested. And so I just want to give you a heads up on.
So you're keeping it flatline this year? And
That's as close as it gets, it will be.
Possible, so, just if you have an opportunity to take a look at it, and if you have any questions of myself.
Thank you, sir.
feel free to
We
reach out to me.
appreciate that.
All right. Yes.
Thank you for all y'all do.
Okay, next we have the Energy Task Force recommendations.
I'll discuss this one. But do you want to open up any item, or you want me to jump on it?
Oh, Don.
Sorry.
I asked if staff wanted to open up any items regarding the Energy Task Force, or would you prefer I just start on discussing on this one?
I don't know that staff has any
I'll start
information.
then. Okay, so as this board is aware, in 2022, the Board of Supervisors formed the Energy Task Force, which actually took its first meeting in June 2023 and completed its work in August with a report that was briefed to the Board of Supervisors. The Energy Task Force was formed to review Isle of Wight's existing energy infrastructure, remaining capacity and high voltage transmission lines. They also looked at distribution lines, future energy generation projects, and emerging energy generation technologies. The Energy Task Force has met with a number of industry experts spread across from energy production to data centers to emergency management, land use, so across multiple fields that touch energy generation. And then ultimately looked at, through 5 goals, did a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, to assess kind of where the county sits with respect to its current infrastructure for energy generation and the potential for what's coming next and the actions that ought to be taken. From that, there was 4 priority items that were established, and I'll discuss, there was a number of long-term actions. I'll discuss the high priority items and the status of those. The number 1 item was that the county should urgently develop an ordinance related to energy storage to prepare for future projects throughout the community. As you all know, Surrey recently introduced a battery storage ordinance. It's advertised in their paper. It's available publicly online. The growing trend is that battery storage is coming, and that's kind of where the Energy Task Force saw the next energy generation technology introduced into Isle of Wight. On those lines, item number 3, we looked at the county's current emergency management plan with respect to energy storage as well, and energy production, and recognize that there needs to, it should be reviewed to cover the gaps that currently exist. Energy storage, like batteries, have a tremendous amount of energy capability, and if released in a catastrophic event like a fire or a lithium being introduced to the, water being introduced to the lithium, it reacts pretty violently, and just a better posture of the county in its capability to respond to that type of event. The second item, the second one was to look at the energy ordinances as they relate to microgrids and community scale energy projects. Our current ordinance has only a recognition of one size, which is a utility scale solar generation. And that does not distinguish whether it goes onto a transmission line or a distribution line. Transmission lines are the ones that are the high voltage that are going that you see on the high tension lines. Distribution are what you see in the neighborhood on the white poles. And the breaking point is typically about 20 megawatts of what can go onto distribution, and above that would go onto a transformer and then go onto a transmission line. The concern there is that both have a capacity limitation. So what we looked at is that there is potential need to break energy production into a community scale, is what we would term it, but a smaller energy production, solar production, and to and also to look at microgrids, and a small portion of land that would have its energy production and be self-contained. Like, for example, a planned community that came out with a greater than 2-acre solar field as part of one of its organic features for the residents. The concern with the formation of the community scale is that there's a capability to saturate the distribution lines. If you go to like Jersey right now, there's folks that on their house cannot put solar panels onto their own house because utilities have put energy into the distribution lines and therefore prevented the residents from being capable of producing their own solar in their home. So it's really a concern of just ensuring that the residents are protected from such a saturation to preserve their right to produce energy on the rooftop if that's something that they chose to do. And then the last item is the public engagement piece. The Energy Task Force made recommendations that how the county can use existing vehicles to communicate with the public to improve its knowledge on energy production and energy storage and the items in those matters. So make that information available to the public, including one item that will be an update into the comprehensive plan that includes not only the revision that occurred to the ordinance regarding solar, but also giving an executive summary of the Energy Task Force work and where the public can find more online on that topic. To give an update on those items, the ordinance on battery storage is currently being formed. Mr. Lewis Edmonds, who was on the Energy Task Force, is writing that. He'll introduce that in draft form to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission will be editing that, and then ultimately it'll come to the Board of Supervisors. And Mr. Matthew Smith from the Planning Commission is working with Emergency Management to look at the emergency preparedness for battery storage. Any questions?
And so then the community engagement piece of it, recommendation number 4, is that something that the comprehensive planning community group has looked at or integrated into their edits for this round?
Right. There's been edits that are intended to go into the comprehensive plan, and I expect that they will. And that was one piece of it.
Does it bear repeating or emphasis next week on the 8th, the meeting, or you think they've got all that?
It's already written.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's already written. And
yeah, I see one of the areas could be distributing energy-related information at the fair. Yeah, I don't know that that got a lot of attention, but certainly, I'm sure our team is preparing for the fair right now, so, just a reminder that that was one of the channels that was suggested.
Discussion?
Yeah, do you think we need to get maybe a subject matter expert to come in and maybe just present to the board? I mean, if we want to generate some paperwork, then we need to know what we're generating, so to speak.
We looked at, on the Energy Task Force, looked at hiring a consultant for either full-time, and what we ultimately concluded is that on an as-needed basis, that might be something worthwhile, but really there's no FTE demand for that, so it might be, a special event where one would be needed. Like, for example, Energy Task Force had recommended that, staff write the ordinance associated with the community scale solar, and that might be an area that is rather complex and warrants somebody coming in to help, write that in a way based on the technical.
Right.
I think our PDC, HR PDC, has any resources to help with that? I mean, since we already pay into that group.
I don't know if they have anything on those areas or not. I could check and see.
Well, and they may serve as a resource for us, just, and one thing that you had mentioned, and that was the battery storage aspect. I mean, everything's evolving, but at the same time, there's no sense in reinventing the wheel if you can get it from somebody else and then build on that. At least it serves as an outline. When it comes to our emergency management department, they have their own bodies and associations, et cetera, and they definitely have the network to, I think, bring a skeleton of some type of ordinance, which is better to have in place now, because what's going to happen is somebody's going to show up with a large project in front of us, and it's going to look like we're doing something that we're not intended. We'd like to have some kind of structure ahead of time before somebody comes in front of us, which I think is y'all's point here. I mean, the saturation part, I think, is an interesting aspect, too. If somebody moves, whether it's to a county or city, but particularly our county, which is what we're worried about, and they want to put solar panels on top of their house, and they find out it's saturated, sorry. Is there a percentage they work with when you start talking about a grid being saturated to the point where a homeowner couldn't put solar panels? For example, it would have been a heck of a note if our school system, when they wanted to do when they did all the solar panels on top of the buildings, went to that whole project, which I know they did the research on the front side, but it'd been disappointing to find out that because we didn't pay attention, that the system, that everything was saturated, so you really can't do what you want to do. I mean, so is there a percentage? Do they discuss what is the threshold that you want to keep it under or at for saturation?
Yeah, I don't recall seeing it by percentage. What we found was an online map that shows kind of like a heat map of where energy production is occurring. At the time of the review, we didn't find any areas that were currently saturated, but that's something that, could build in the future as more residential solar goes up. There's maps, I believe it was Dominion, if I remember right, that shows that heat map.
So one would think, not even trying to pretend to know what I'm talking about, but one would think that if you had an energy storage facility, that when you release that energy, there's going to be some saturation that's going to occur. So a couple of battery storage facilities drop in on Isle of Wight County, next thing you know, you're surprised that there's saturation that's occurring in parts of the county by virtue of they know it because they have the engineers, but we would approve something, or the next board might approve things with not understanding that saturation will affect things like wanting to put your own solar panels up or some other things, I'm guessing.
I think that's
about
what
right?
the ETF's talking about, is just getting ahead of that.
Yeah.
I find it very interesting that was taking place, considering currently with a lot of the solar right now, it's they've either got room on the grid or it's just lost. They can't take it. And there was also discussion, the second thing within our county about pushback on batteries storage and the fear of fires and so on, and how our emergency services would handle that. And then the fact that with transfer switches and things like that, you can totally eliminate overloading the grid by making sure that it only comes to your house. And so that's very interesting that it would come up like that. I don't know if that's old news or new news. Sitting with Harumpha, and where a lot of our discussions here recently has been in terms of micronuclear power and so on, and how to replenish and build the grid, what it means the impact of data centers, what that means, and there's a whole lot of other pretty big items, but, on that checkoff list. But I will tell you that the military is moving forward in terms of their progress on micro nuclear reactors and how they can be utilized, and it'll probably be, there's gonna be a lot of public information coming out of that. It's still, right now, about 10 years out, but they'll initiate it probably on some of the local bases, because you have the nuclear technology, because you have the staff, you have the security, you have a whole lot of elements already in place for that. So,
To touch on that saturation item again, in I believe it was 2022, when the solar ordinance was revised, that included some requirement for solar generation projects to demonstrate data of what's the remaining capacity on, I believe it was distribution lines.
right.
What the Energy Task Force found is on the transmission lines, there's more privacy that's retained because it's a PGM commodity, and some of it is proprietary, and they were, pretty limited on what they would share on transmission lines. But the ones that would, affect residential are the distribution, and that's in our ordinance to give detail when a project comes through.
Is it premature to ask our emergency management to look at other ordinances as far as energy storage now? To at least give us more things to think about, and
I think
in light
that's
of
what
you-
Matt's doing, right?
Yeah,
With the,
Matt's
That
looking
is-
at other localities now and seeing how they're handling battery storage. The let it burn philosophy, it doesn't work well with battery storage. It's gonna have to understand what the hazardous constituents are, knowing, if 10% go airborne, what the exposure limit to the public is, if it's a major fire, and, be able to do that math in advance and know what, if any, risk is presented to the public. Waiting for air samples to find out that is too late. It has to be calculated in advance, so the right emergency action recommendations are issued to the public. And we don't have any battery storage, so now is currently the time to go off and work on this.
Has Will Drury been involved at all in any aspect of this?
He met with the Energy Task Force twice.
I'm just saying he would be a resource, because I know the other localities are working on, and not just what you mentioned, but other localities are working on similar projects.
so maybe just as a reminder to Mr. Smith, that Will's a great resource.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any other support that you think the Energy Task Force needs from us at this time, or we're just giving an update on priorities?
Well, Energy Task Force is
Oh, I understand.
Completely
Sorry
no.
for their recommendations. I mean, anything else we need to do?
I think that the fourth item, looking at the community scale microgrid, is really what, after priorities 1, 2, and 3 are complete, needs some attention. That's the one where I think would warrant somebody, an expert in those systems, to come in and consult the county to write that. There's not a pressing need for it right now. I don't know of any near-term projects, but that is a coming potential, and that's something that, I think is near-term type of action.
So again, Mr. Keaton, you're gonna check with our
We will, yeah.
planning district on available
Yeah,
resources and
Yep.
expertise? Thank you.
And, the plan, they do have they have staff in emergency management. And of course, they work with, they work with the whole regional, grants from the federal government for emergency management. They provide a lot of the vehicles we use, so the MRAP that we host here for the little small ambulance that we can, go into crowds. We actually host that here at Isle of Wight, so we've got a good working relationship with them.
Have you had any conversations with Dominion?
Linda came in at least once to talk to the Energy Task Force. There was more than just solar looked at too. Each of the energy generation potentials were looked at, and some were ruled out immediately, like wind, we don't have the soil to support winds. We ruled, the likelihood of wind generation coming here was rated as pretty low. We found that there was generally positive perception with small modular reactors, and we have a lot of the right resources that would make this a prime location for it. We didn't get the opinion from the industry that there was currently any plans to build here, but there's the right stuff to do it.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I guess not specific to this, and I'll just touch on it briefly. We had a stormwater task force that did a whole lot of work, and of course, we've had some people that are no longer with us. I think we spoke briefly. There were some action items, at least that several months, if not a year or more ago, that were supposed to come before the board and have not. So if we could dust that off and see if they're still applicable and get it in front of the board for at least discussion, I'd greatly appreciate it. Because that, just like these people on this energy task force took their time to put this together, so did that stormwater task force.
Very good.
Similarly, I know we're in the throes of budget, but we do have an audit committee meeting next week, and I think I promised you all an update from the audit committee too, you know, some kind of formal report, maybe at the work session in May. Okay.
That's on Monday or Tuesday. Monday? Yeah, Monday.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, we have closed meeting coming up. Yes?
Mr. Chairman, can I
Yes,
make
sir.
one quick report? So the last meeting, the board talked about recording the EDA meetings, and so we just want to give an update on that. So one of the problems we've run into is that the EDA typically meets the same day as the planning commission, and they meet here in this room. So if we're recorded, it makes it good, but the EDA meets at 4, and if their meeting runs over, then they're trying to get set up for the planning commission, so the EDA sometimes gets kicked out of the room, and they have to go finish their meeting maybe in the side room.
Actually, they typically, if they know that there's not always a planning commission meeting. That's the planning commission work session day, but with this ongoing comp plan amendment, they've been using that second Tuesday of the month, and the EDA is just moving their location to the Windsor Center because they don't want to run over in their meetings, so they're just moving their meetings to another location because their meetings typically run past 5:30, and the planning commission staff is trying to set up in here to get the planning commission ready, and they can't do that, so that's what's happening.
Right, and so that's what's happening next week. Well, the issue is if we have a planning commission meeting here and we're trying to tape that, we don't have the staff to go down off-site and tape a meeting of the EDA at the Windsor Center. So what we've talked about is, and of course, there's going to need to be some discussion with the EDA whether they want to move their meetings to a different time and day, or it's just a timing issue of trying to do two things at the same place. And so I want to report back, the EDA and staff have no problem doing it. It's just a matter of, do we have enough staff? We don't have, full-time videographers to go out and tape all these meetings. So we're using, using existing IT staff. Well, like, for example, the other night when we went, late, we had to give the person off the next day because they had already worked 8 hours and they worked another 8 hours, sitting here doing this. One thing we've talked about is if we can, for some of these other groups like the EDA, and now we've had a request to tape the comp board meeting or the comp plan meeting next week as the work session. We don't typically do the work sessions for the planning commission, so that's been requested as well. So one option is to maybe, and Jason's been on vacation this week, but check with them to see if we could just turn the system on and no one has to stay back there. You wouldn't have the panning around the room and things like that, but at least you could turn it on and let it run, and then if there's a switch can be flipped off. Did you have a chance to check on that?
Did talk to IT staff today. Jason is out of actually out of the country, but he will be back on Monday. But we did talk about it. There is some equipment that we could acquire and utilize so that in this room, we could allow groups to essentially, well, basically, it would record continuously. So if a group's in here meeting, their meeting's going to be recorded. It's relatively inexpensive. I think it's about $600 for that piece of equipment, and they can put that into place in-house. So without question, it's doable. It's not doable between now and Monday. We will have staff for the audit committee meeting, and if there's a desire to record the comp plan work session, we will have staff to do that. But within a relatively short period of time, we will have equipment in this room that will allow for continuous recording, so it won't require anybody to really do anything other than hold a meeting.
But we still have a problem if we have off-site meetings and we just don't have
That's a
portable
staff issue.
equipment to go, because, you know, when we've had some of these large meetings at the Windsor Town Center, we had to rent equipment and things like that to do that. And we don't have people that could go down there and do that while they're trying to do this one as well.
An off-site typically requires 2 people.
So with the coming up comp plan and the planning commission, you're gonna be able to make that one.
We can cover those with staff.
And then the EDA, we can look to see if they
But
can adjust their schedule.
This
so
is
that
a growing question because it started out with questions about EDA. Now it's the comp plan board. We've had requests from other committees, Commission on Aging and other groups,
Commission on Special People with
adults with
disabilities.
disabilities.
Because some of them can't make it out to meetings late at
So,
night.
you know, again, we've got very limited staff capability of doing all these meetings. Even if they're doing the workday, it still pulls them away from other IT functions. And so the challenge is maximizing the use of our staff and also accomplishing what's being requested. So we think we can do that with equipment that doesn't require somebody to physically be in here at all times.
If they're meeting in this room.
That's the.
The issues are all,
Regarding the off-site, I think the concerns are coming that between the minutes and the video, the level of detail is, significantly different. The minutes tend to provide somewhat of a summary when the video, somebody can go back and watch it and hear the detailed conversations that occurred. Is there a way to, bridge the gap until with just an audio recording for items that are off-site, but not necessarily like the video, so that people still get in context the detail of the communication?
So the minutes are a whole different conversation.
Right.
Because again, that's whatever department is
But I'm not
assigned
talking about the
to.
minutes. I'm saying that's like the reason I believe that people want it recorded is so they hear the detail that is involved in the meeting, which is a level higher than the minutes, right?
So you're saying audio recording would be better than,
Yeah, I'm saying audio recording is better than nothing. How can we do that?
We can do it. The question is who would be responsible for doing that? Because again, we don't have audio equipment everywhere. Now, I've told committees this. If you want to record your meeting, somebody pull out a cell phone and record. There's nothing that prevents you from doing that. But
But
if
once it's recorded,
it's a record
has
that
to
we
be
have
kept.
to maintain. And so again, there's just more to the conversation than we want to record a meeting.
Right, because you can actually make it a Teams meeting, for example, and you can record the whole meeting as well, but then
Teams
that has
opens up a
complications.
whole different,
Yes, it
because
does.
now you had to make it available to the public.
Right,
So,
it's complicated.
yeah, yeah.
and part of the concern with the IT staff is, we say they're gonna record these items, we'll make it work. Well, we only have a small IT department, and we had the issue, like when the dispatch went down. You're gonna have to either leave the guy recording in here or have him go do what really needs to, and I don't say that recording doesn't need to be done, but you see the issue that recording meetings After hours is actually easier for the IT staff if they've got somebody scheduled because they're not doing their daily job. They're doing, fixing computers and systems that are going down, and we're having to pull somebody away. So if there is a way to automatically record it, $600 or $1,000 is not, is well worth it, because we're just gonna have other issues when they're not, either that or we're gonna have to hire a full-time videographer. Again, to answer your question, there's nothing that says that the EDA secretary has a tape recorder that she records the meetings, but she doesn't have to keep that tape because she is only using it for her personal use to type the minutes. Once the minutes are typed and approved, the recording goes away.
Much easier.
I think it would be an act in transparency to consider how hard it would be to make that a record and publicly available.
The recording.
Right.
Can you do that in lieu of the minutes, but you always have to have the minutes?
You have to have written minutes. that
Minutes are the
approved.
official action of the boards.
They don't have to be verbatim minutes, we don't do those.
Like
They
you
just
said, it's a
have to be-
summary.
Just a summary, but, again, I don't know what format we would need the recording in order to then be able to upload it to the website where somebody can look at, or listen to it. That's a technology question that I don't know the answer to, but I'm sure there's a way. I mean, we have videos that are embedded in our program. I'm sure there's a way to do it. I just don't know what it is.
Well, what did we do with the first audit committee? Because Supervisor McCarty recorded that on his cell phone.
I'm taking minutes for those.
Right,
So
now
again,
they're recorded.
Yeah.
It's not just the recording, it's also somebody's got to have, or take time to record the
But
minutes.
the question was, what happened to Mr. McCarty's cell phone that he recorded?
I never received that recording. I did those minutes from literally sitting in the meeting, taking minutes or taking notes.
I guess that's gone.
I suspect it is. I mean, I don't know what happened to him.
Yeah, we never received.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'd almost forgotten about that because,
But there's no requirement to record. The only requirement is to have a written set of the minutes. I mean, it's good to record.
Right.
There's no legal requirement that we have to record.
No, but again, for transparency
Right.
purposes, and once we do record, then it's kept.
The
and so
problem is,
now, no, go ahead.
the problem is that, those meetings, I believe, are at 4 PM, well before many folks can get off work. And I think that provides them a method to, hear it at a later date. If it's recorded, they can come back to the library and hear it. And we're going to keep getting complaints of lack of transparency until they're available in some method.
We'll get complaints about everything. And we actually did a quick survey to ask how many planning commissions, I think it was work sessions, or how many groups actually recorded these types of meetings. I think there may have been 2 in the region.
The rest of them don't do it.
So, again, for us, that's really not the issue. The issue is if the board wants to do that, we can make it happen. It's just a matter of which resources are best utilized to make that happen. Whether it's, again, just putting a piece of electronic device in place and it automatically records, or some other methodology. But if we utilize staff, there's a cost to doing that.
Can we get a recommendation from staff to
We will.
best actions to take?
I think, we think it's a doable thing to set up something here. The question is having just audio only if it's off-site.
The comp plan conflict with the EDA is time limited, right?
You say time limited.
I mean, these sessions with the comprehensive plan review will end when that
Yes.
review is over.
Yes, but we have used that Tuesday for other
Yeah.
work sessions.
Yeah, it's not
items
just
as
about the
well.
comp plan.
Well, there's up to 30 other days in each month, some months, so maybe
Well,
the EDA needs to move their meeting.
And again, unless you all tell us otherwise, we're gonna move forward with getting the equipment installed in this room, I just want to make sure everybody understands that's not going to be in place before Tuesday.
Got it.
Any thoughts on that, members?
Got a plan, take a plan.
I think the item in here makes sense. Encourage that, some review going on how difficult it would be to do audio recording when it's off-site, what are the challenges, and then do a pros and cons there. If it's, if the challenges are overcomable, that ought to be acted on.
Yeah, and literally a lot of that's on a case-by-case basis, because when we're at the schools, it's challenging. When we're at the Windsor Town Center, it's almost impossible. For audio, the video is not the issue, it's the audio.
Is that the acoustics of the room?
It's not designed, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's not designed for that kind of function.
Or if we have to meet in the courts building.
Courts building actually worked well, but we had to go in and make
Right.
some fairly substantial changes to that room.
Any other comments? Everybody comfortable with that?
So we'll find out some options for the audio recording and make sure we have the right format, but we'll get with staff at the next meeting, but like I say, we won't have that for the next EDA meeting, and I know there's some comments about that online, but, it was not as simple as just, recording it.
Since the court is set up though already, correct or not correct? Because we had met over there and we actually changed.
So we retrofit the court room to record when you were meeting there.
Okay.
It's not set up on a continuous
Okay.
basis to do that. When we moved back to this room, then we brought our equipment and everything back to this room. Even though there is still some equipment in that room, we couldn't just say, hey, let's walk over there and start recording, right? It's not that simple.
Because we're probably gonna get busier rather than less busy. It may be something to think about down the road, because it's, in one sense, you could say underutilized, and we have a building there, a facility there that we perhaps should use a little bit more often. So something to be thinking about.
Well, the only problem now is the courts are having a lot more jury trials and things, so the courts are.
In the
courtroom-
evenings?
Well, so if we put equipment in this room, which we're going to do, that will record, we can actually utilize this room more. This room is not utilized every evening.
Okay.
But that's still gonna put the onus on whatever group that's meeting to let us know when you're meeting so we can make sure everything's working. They're still gonna have to do their minutes. IT doesn't do that.
Right.
But if we can do things in this room, that actually works for us from a staff perspective.
Okay.
The challenge with the EDA meeting that's coming up next week is, that's in Windsor.
Right.
Not a problem from the standpoint of the meeting in Windsor. It is a problem for us recording that meeting because it's gonna require 2 staff people to go down there and do it.
Going forward, maybe they can transition on their date, so it's not in conflict like Renee was saying, there's a lot of different days in a month. And,
Yeah, and I think we should look at all those things.
yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhat tangent to this, but since it's related, another recommendation from the Energy Task Force as it relates to communication was considering the breaks in between the recorded video to put up, like a rotational PowerPoint that information the public might want to know, not just about energy-related stuff, but in general, county-related information important to the county. If the audio recording is acted on, one way you might do it is that same type of reel while playing, but the video would be, important information that everybody wants to know in the county.
On the website?
What's that?
Put it on the website?
Right, on the website where you go to the player, right? You see currently, a desk saying meeting not in session, or it's on a break.
We're in the closed meeting, and it
Yeah.
just has that, for an hour, it's just got a screen that says closed meeting or whatever it
I
says.
like that idea.
And, yeah.
It's kind of like a public service announcement, if they're watching anyway.
Okay.
Could be something else to ask Jason about.
Any further discussion on that? Bobby?
Mr. Chairman, if it's the board's pleasure, pursuant to section 2.23711A of the Code of Virginia, a motion to move to closed session for the limited purpose of a discussion regarding the appointment of the county administrator pursuant to subsection 1.
We don't have to do a motion. huh?
You have to vote.
Okay.
He made the motion, Mr. Jefferson made the
Motion's
motion.
made by Jefferson to go to closed session.
Mr. Stefan?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Ms. Roundtree? Yes.
To show him as absent for the vote.
Chairman Rosie?
Yes. So moved. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, you'll need a motion to return to open session.
So moved.
Mr. DeStefano?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Ms. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Rosie?
yes.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to Section 2.23712 of the Code of Virginia, motion certifying to the best of each member's knowledge only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements and only such public business matters as identified in the motion to move to closed session were heard.
So moved.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Ms. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. DeStefano?
Yes.
Chairman Rosie?
Yes, so moved.
And Mr. Chairman, if the record will reflect that Mr. Akery took no part in the closed session as he had to leave, so he was not part of that at all for the purpose of certification.
Okay.
All right, well, Mr. Chairman, with that said, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the execution of the employment agreement with Mr. Don Robinson as county administrator effective July the 1st, 2025.
Any further discussion? Madam Clerk?
Mr. DeStefano?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Ms. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Rosie?
Yes, so moved. Are there any other additional items of discussion by the board or summaries that you might want to deliver for tonight? Well, we're deep in the process of planning for our budget, and we have a good bit of homework in front of us still. And I want the citizens that are watching tonight, especially those that will hear about it, that, you know, we're going to try to turn every stone that we can. We are faced with an interesting challenge with the needs of the community that are growing, and yet there's a high level of uncertainty if you follow the news and the tariffs and all the things that are going on. And I hope at the end of the day, we may have some departments that don't get some of the things they want this year, but I believe that we have to take a very conservative stand on what we do, because there's a lot of uncertainty that we have not seen in a long time right now going on. We don't know what's going to happen with the Department of Education changing up and funds coming down the states. There's a lot of things we do not know. And so that's going to be a big part of our conversations and how we try to plan. With that, meeting's adjourned.